Say greetings, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Dreamscapes. Today we have our friend Emmy here from Canada. Hi, Emmy.
Hi.
Hello. And Emmy's going to share a dream with us as per my usual process. I'm just going to sit and listen quietly. She's going to go through it kind of beginning to end chronologically. And then we'll go through it again, and then we'll try to figure out what's happening. So I'm ready when you are.
All right. So the dream starts off in a facsimile of my neighborhood that I live in real life. And I'm rolling down it. I'm actually not sure what I'm rolling down on and on. It's probably some like scooter or skateboard or something, but I don't really ride any of those things. And I'm just rolling down the street. And it's hot and dry. The sun's out. There aren't that many people around, but they're kind of just there on their lawn. There's some random kids and they're kind of bothering me. And I'm just out there and I'm watching the people. And I'm going up to the shops, and it's nighttime. And I'm hungry, so there's a lot of restaurants, but I just kind of walk around to them. It's a little cold outside, it's gotten dark, and I would like something greasy, but kind of healthy. There's not really that many options, so I end up kind of just walking by and going into this little tiny shop, which I've been to before. And I get like a little wrap, and I'm on my way. And I go to the woods. And I'm only there for a little while because the woods is just like this little path that leads to like this field. And it's just this thing that happens. But that part of the dream wasn't very long or very notable, but it kind of moves on to a different part of the dream where something much more distinct happens. And this part of the dream occurs in the location of my dreams. So it's kind of like the place where I work. It's like this big building. I don't work there anymore, but and it doesn't look like it really. It's just like a representative of something like that, and representative of several other types of locations like that. So it's a very big building, and sometimes it's a hospital, sometimes it's a school. Sometimes it's where I work. Sometimes it's all of those things. There's a mine and garage in the bottom of it. Like there's a garage and like a mine that goes all the way down, which I go into later in the dream, but I'll get to that. But so I'm working. Not much is happening. You know, there's empty rooms. I'm cleaning things up and checking out the theater and whatever, but what actually happens, like what kicks off in the dream at this point, is that I learn that my friend is in the hospital. To clarify, this is a mental hospital, and I have been institutionalized, so it's definitely relevant to my real life, as well as my friend. She's like, well, she was my friend, and she's bipolar, so she's been institutionalized. But the plan was that I was gonna go in. Like sometimes I'm working in this hospital, but it's not like the case at this point. But I was just gonna go in, like go through triage, go through the bag, and just kind of pretend to be a patient. It was a little weird because there's already a room set up for me there, and I was just there. I made it in. I snuck in, and I was like, wow, that was really easy for some reason. And I got distracted when I was in there because I started to get confused between that location and the other location, the family house. And what was happening was that I lost my nice coloring utensils. I lost my, what are they called? Prismacolor. I lost my Prismacolor coloring pencils, and somebody freaking replaced them with Crayola. And I was like, what is this? Who would do such a thing? Honestly, people used to do shit like that to me when I was in school, so maybe it's a memory. But I was just kind of going around and looking under their beds and getting distracted. I never really got a chance to leave, but oh Jesus, sorry. I got spooked by something, and I never really got a chance to leave, even though I was trying to plan my escape, like, you know, just watching the nurses and just being there. I wasn't in really any particular rush, and I didn't find my friend. I didn't do anything. All I looked for was my pencil leads, and but yeah, that scenery kind of changed the family home. And this is kind of a real place. It's kind of connected to the wilds. It's definitely distorted in my dreams. It's kind of a real place, like connected to an actual real place in the real world, but it's different. And some of my family was there. Obviously, not my real life family, just like whatever my dream self decided what's gonna be my family in my dream. Like it just like randomly generated family. um, and we were just there, just like dealing with mundane stuff. Like shit was just happening. Nothing really worth, except for the fact that we were going in and out of the house, and um, I accidentally locked one of my baby cousins out of the house, and they disappeared. And this happened in a dream before this too. So this is kind of like an element of recurrence because they had two kids and I accidentally lost one of them and then I lost the other one. So they weren't very happy with me. But that was in an earlier dream. But then they just had like one missing kid and the other kid went missing too. So I spent like a lot of that dream outside the house. Actually, the funny thing is with that dream, I did spend a lot of time outside the house looking around at a garden, which sometimes happens in my dreams. I get confused over the garden there and the garden here, but it's a common thing that happens. I'll just go out and, fix a fence. There will be dogs sometimes. In that dream particularly, there was a dog that was kind of like a black dog. It's like I just had a dog that died like a few months ago, so he's been kind of showing up in my dreams a little bit here and there. He gets lost sometimes too, but he was there. And another dog. We are kind of just hanging out. And yeah, we went to the store after that. Ever since coronavirus, like there's always been stores in my dreams, but ever since coronavirus, it was actually only a few weeks ago that it finally got like imprinted into my dream brain that I need to wear a mask when I go into stores. So a lot of the time I spent in the store, which is like it's one store in my brain because I often go to a store in my dreams, like as part of the thing, but it's usually different. So this kind of store was like a department store, definitely. They had some food, but also like a weird amount of construction stuff. I don't know, like a Home Depot, Walmart kind of deal, but more food. And I just spent the entire dream like trying to just walking around, trying to get food and stuff. I spend a lot of time doing that munching stuff when I'm in there. And actually, I think I might have been looking for a rug and a vacuum cleaner and some snacks, like some chips and stuff. And then there was a little bit of time in the school, not much. And weirdly enough, like I went down into the mines and there was a theater down there in that game. And it was just kind of bathed in red, and there wasn't much going down there. It was just like a small snippet of the dream, and there was just a waterfall, and the person that was with me grabbed a bucket and filled it up with water, and that's all I remember out of that. And I think that's most of what I remember out of that dream. But I could remember definitely other specifics, but that's the gist of it.
Okay, that's a lot of great details. Okay, I think, and then that brings us back to the end. So I've got like, quite a bit of stuff here. Like 2 pages for the first part and like 4 pages for the second pass. No, there's a lot. Don't choke. This is just me. I write in huge chicken scratchy letters that I can hold it up to the camera. No one's going to be able to read that because it's backwards. But also it's just incomprehensible. I don't even have to write in code. It's just chicken scratch. No one can read it anyway. Oh,
confidentiality.
I'm having the worst time tearing things straight. It drives me nuts. I'm gonna throw this whole pad away. Screw you.
I'm not good at that either, honestly.
I know. It makes me very happy. The first one, oh, look at that bright, beautiful line. The rest of them, not so much. Oh, drives me crazy. Anyway, I'm not gonna let my quasi OCD get the better of me. So we've been through it once. I listened, and we've been through it again. You answered questions. Before I get to, say, maybe starting to make suggestions or make my own connections, I like to ask people, having been through that process that we just did you have any eureka moments? Did you have any things where you're like, oh, okay, I see that, and you put them together and it makes something? Did you get a sense of that anywhere through that process? Anything stand out to you?
Well, kind of no, kind of these, because I mean, not
Because,
necessarily while talking about it right now, because I thought about the dream before, and I told somebody else about the dream because I just tell people about it, and like
well,
while I was thinking about it initially, like there are definitely things that I can connect it to in real life, and I'm like, yeah,
okay,
like you can kind of just like feel the connection between the things,
for
but no.
sure. And that's a great place to start. If you've already had some ideas, that's probably relevant to something. So we should start there. What stands out to you? What connections have you already drawn?
Well, I have had to try to rescue my friend from an institution before, and it was a little bit traumatic for everybody involved. So that's probably part of it. I didn't sneak in though, but they they locked her up in there and didn't like fulfill any rights of hers at all. Like she wasn't able to contact her family or a lawyer. Nobody knew where she went. The police kind of just like took her, and then she was gone, and she was in seclusion for a week
Wow.
straight. So that's like no, she wasn't allowed to see anybody or read a book or talk to anybody on a phone or like do anything. And she was left there to like poop herself and not have any changes of clothes because the security wasn't coming back a lot. And so like we didn't know any of this until, well, that's not true because this has happened to her. That happened to her before, and
Yeah.
so we knew kind of when that happened again that, but just for longer, that it was just kind of like the same but longer. But she's like, she has been psychotic without being violent, with increasing violence like every time she gets re-traumatized by being locked into her room for days on end. So we're not friends anymore because she attacked my friend and
Oh,
couldn't
yeah.
stay around,
That's
and
rough.
it was a whole thing, and like exposing everybody to coronavirus because she just like wouldn't stay home, that kind of thing, and it was
Yeah.
just like,
That's a huge
yeah.
problem. What to do with
So
folks that are not in control of their own behavior because they may pose a risk to themselves or others, but at the same time, you don't want the solution to pose a risk to them either. And you're trying to balance
yeah,
that out. And yeah, I'd say, I mean, that specific description, locking someone in a room for a week, doesn't seem very beneficial.
she was a lot different after that.
Yeah.
That changed her. It gave her PTSD. I'm 100% certain of it because it was terrifying.
Well, it
And
changed you too because you're
um,
dealing with the fallout and trying to maintain a relationship with this person who's decompensating. Yeah, so that would have a
yeah.
big. What? How do you relate that to the dream beyond just that specific element of
Oh, well,
entering a facility to save a friend? Do you think there's more to it than that?
um,
There may or may not be.
Well, the funny thing was is that they had a bed ready for me. It kind of made my dream self feel like, there's a bed out here already. That's cheeky. That's I like, but I kind of didn't. That wasn't like a eureka moment per se, but I definitely took note of that.
Yeah. What
It's
what
just like,
what do you make of that in terms of, so like two possibilities jump into my mind. One is that a part of you thinks you could use some help in that metaphorical sense, and another part of you could be fearing that someone thinks you're unstable. So you have a bed ready for you in your dream because you need it, or you're worried someone else is going to get a bed ready for you because they think you need it. Does that make sense? Does that resonate at all?
yeah, somewhat. It's like I definitely need psychiatric help, but I got an appointment now, so that's exciting. But
Yeah, that's
it's
good.
like, it's it was also kind of like surprised because they're usually pretty crowded in there, so I didn't think they would have any empty.
Gotcha.
It was just like a lot of. It was just
It does feel important to me that it was like it was ready for you. It was saved. It was reserved. The place was
yeah. It
there.
was
Yeah.
the weirdest thing is that it might not have even been reserved as much as it was almost like I had already been there, and that my stuff was still there. If you know what I mean.
Sure. Yeah.
Which is funny because I do have familiarity with that place. Like specifically, we have like that one mental institution in our city that is literally like over 100 years old. So it's still built like it's literally the same as it was like back when it was basically a torture chamber jail area. And
Yeah.
it's just like it's something that anybody who's been inpatient is just familiar with, and the staff there just whack. It's whack as hell, man. It's just
Uh,
really whack. It's all whack. They break the law all the time, like for everybody, And I experienced that too personally, not to the same degree, obviously, but it's just like it's such a place. And anyway, that was on my mind because it makes me mad every time, and that's why I was sneaking in because I was like, I need to figure out what's going on for real this time.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, and a lot of these things are sometimes there are metaphors and sometimes there are direct representations because these are specific things that you're processing. So there's so many notes. I don't even know where to start half the time. I get lost in these things, and that's great. I love this feeling of being lost because then if I actually find my way, it's like the struggle made it better. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
It's true.
But
I'm not gonna lie, I love my own dreams. Like I love having them and I love like sussing them out because they tend to just there's just some it's just they hit, man. So
yeah, I think I mean, it's my opinion and I think it's true, but of course I do. It's my opinion. The dreams are meaningful, that these are what our subconscious, so to speak, is trying to figure out so it can be brought into the consciousness and made sense of.
Yeah.
So
it feels like dumping. Like it feels like, like after you've had your day and you've had your ego and you've had your conscience, it goes like and just dumps it all out and
sure.
Then you're like, huh.
Yeah, but it's also a selective dumping in a way. It's like it kind of outputs the highlights. It outputs
like a little brain goblins holding a colander under it and just like shaking it.
Kind of sifting it out. Yeah. And some of the and actually that's not a bad metaphor for it too, because what it sifts out are, say, maybe the things that are less relevant, and what you're left with are the larger chunks that aren't going to fit through the holes in the colander. They're the things that remain after you've sifted out. That's a great metaphor.
The funny thing is, though, I think that I feel like the things that happen in my dreams like contain like, and we were kind of talking about this, but I know that there's a lot of thoughts that happened during that dream that were completely irrelevant to the dream. And
Maybe.
We're just like really random like dream thoughts that I've had. And I think a lot of it happens in that form as well. And a lot of those things are less memorable unless they're like attached to the actual experience that I've had in the dream. But sometimes I'm just like, whoa.
Yeah.
I was thinking about stuff.
That's what we're looking for. Those moments of, you can like feel it in your chest. It's almost a visceral, physical feeling of importance, of me. It's like a spider sense. I think of it that way. It's something so esoteric you can't describe the feeling, but you know when it happens. You know what it is. And part of my process is getting at those moments, but also looking at overarching themes. You spend a lot of time in this dream searching. You were looking for something. So that's a theme that seems to run through the whole dream. What do you think of that?
I think that's accurate. Well, I think the biggest theme, personally, like for it, and this like includes searching because it's kind of all a part of the same thing. It's like being stuck and wasting time, which is kind of how I feel in my real life all the time. And so I spend a lot of times in my dream just kind of like, and I think that's what it feels like when the dreams are recurring, is like being stuck and wasting time. Like I'm just wasting time searching for things. I get distracted a lot. Sure. And I'm like, I end up searching for things, and that happens a lot in my dreams. And it's just like this constant like flitting back and forth between like wanting to participate in what's happening and being completely like drawn into these like weird little like side quests that don't mean anything. But yeah. It's like that's what my real life is like.
And maybe they do, and maybe they don't. That's an interesting thing. You do, without being judgmental, like I say, you do seem a little distractible. You seem a little disorganized in some of your thoughts, and that's okay. Like different things appear to you and pop up as more significant suddenly, and it draws your attention, and that's fine. That's just who you are. So, but you're also seeing
I'm really
that reflect.
not a linear thinker.
Yeah, and that's also what you're seeing reflected in your dreams. So that's just consistent with your personality. That's a good thing to be able to say, okay, this is kind of reflective of your overall process.
Yeah.
And the searching thing is, you're looking for first it's food. And food. I'm not going to do the dream encyclopedia thing where food means something specific, but it often can be. Yeah, the hunger, and the hunger is not, and it's not necessarily concrete. Like you're not hungry in your sleep necessarily, or if you are, you're not aware of it because we're disconnected from that. So it's not like you went to bed hungry and you dreamt about food. That can work that way. It doesn't usually work that way, but it's usually food would say be a metaphor for taking in something necessary, consuming something sustaining. Hunger is a desire that needs to be satisfied. So there's this search for food, the search for your friends, the search for the kid, the search for the pencils. There's missing things and you're trying to find them. And one of those things is your brain's picking all these different representations of missing elements. You need food, you need friendship, you need these different things. Where would you go with kind of that line of thought?
I'd say that's accurate because it's all about looking. Like the finding's not as important.
You didn't tend to find what you were looking
like
for.
I didn't. No, I never did. And food especially is kind of funny. I dream about looking for food a lot because it's just one of those things I lament about too, just constantly, because I'm like, really, am I gonna have to just do this and look for every meal that I have to eat forever? It feels like such an annoying burden. Yeah. And so that definitely translates to my dreams and like that feeling of like just not wanting to have to deal with stuff. But I was like, I was a little bit frustrated that I had to look for food in my dreams. I was like, come on, like I was hungry, really, really hungry, but I wasn't craving anything. So it was like,
yeah. And it is interesting that, if we start kind of going down that road of let's examine the theme of searching, the first thing you found was something to satisfy the hunger, but it was not, how did you describe it? It was not what you were looking for. It was not actually satisfying. I'm trying to look, it was just about getting it is kind of how you phrased it. Yeah. You were looking for something, almost whatever you could find, something cheap, something functional, get the job done, not too unhealthy, and
something that wouldn't give me diarrhea. I was very much thinking that, just to be like completely transparent. I was like, I need something that's not going to make me sick right now to eat because I feel hungry.
And that's
it was like that.
That's something that you kind of consumes your waking life too. You have issues with, you need to eat specific types of food for your health.
Yeah.
Okay.
Except for when I don't, but it happens in my dreams too, and I'm like,
no, if that's something you are living with in your daily life, it's going to show up in your dreams, and especially if it's kind of that important. Like you got to eat 2-3 times a day, sometimes 6 times a day, depending on how your diet is. Not yours, but anybody's. And the more restrictions and the more dire the consequences, the more mental energy gets focused on that. And it's like, it just becomes, all consuming. It's like, God, and then annoying. Do I really have to think of this every day, all day for the rest of my life? And of course that's going to show up in the dreams. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Like that resentment almost towards a commitment to living, honestly, which is a sad way to put it, but absolutely accurate in terms of how I think about it. Like,
yeah. Something that might be useful is maybe getting a little more organized about the food thing so you can think about it less. If you create systems, patterns that are automatic, you could put that on a back burner. Something to think about. I try not to dispense advice, but that's one idea that I think might be useful is, what if I always ate the same thing for breakfast and it was always the same thing and it's always something I know I can eat. And then I buy 100 of those and I put them in the fridge and I never have to think about it again. That's a possibility that's to simplify the process. I don't know what that is or what that looks like, or whether that eating the same thing for breakfast every day for 20 years would drive you mad. I like repetition.
Probably would.
Yeah, I like repetition. I have a feeling you like variety.
I do, and I honestly think that might be what's driving this whole like recurring dream thing, is because I have too much repetition in my life already, and I'm just feeling the strain of that.
Yeah.
And I think that might be part of what's drawing it out, and just making things more repetitive than they usually are.
And that probably
it's not too.
And that probably contributes to that. What you were talking about, the other theme of being stuck and wasting time, is the repetition. It's like, this doesn't feel meaningful. This doesn't satisfy whatever I'm searching for.
Yeah. And to be fair, I had a lot of dreams like that when I was a kid. I remember when I was a kid, I used to have these like time traveling dreams specifically where I'd have to go back and do everything again for years.
Huh.
And it was like,
yeah. That we might have to, I'm fascinated by that too. I was just about to start asking questions like, I should probably stick to this dream because I'm going to get myself confused.
Well, I know why I felt that way as a child. It's just because I don't know, I had I had an issue in school with not being able to work ahead. Like I wasn't allowed to work ahead.
Oh,
And what would end up happening was that I would be sitting there and it would be like a long time. And I was like, 6, 7, 8. Like I was young, pretty impressionable. And I would just be sitting there incredibly understimulated all day with the teacher trying to force my attention to them while they're explaining things to me that I don't necessarily need to be hearing because I would kind of like basically just forced to sit there and do nothing
yeah.
a lot. And
I,
so that like really like that created this like sort of nightmare that I have where I would have to go back in time and like redo things because I was actually forced to do that a lot as a child, and it drove me fucking crazy and it caused me to get depressed really really early
yeah,
in my life.
for sure. Yeah, I didn't have a good school experience myself in terms of sitting still in a chair and listening and repeating
Mm.
things and doing all these repetitive tasks. Drove me crazy. Now I get that entirely. Um, but in terms of yeah, we spoke briefly just in the very beginning of the second pass about the sense of motion of being on the skateboard or the scooter, and I kind of focused on that a little bit of that feeling of whether you were propelling yourself or kind of being carried along, and that could relate to um, the thought that occurred to my mind was that you may have a sense of the path before you being externally controlled in a way, like you're being carried along to a destination that is determined by others, less so than under your own power because that's where you want to go. I don't know if that resonates at all.
Definitely something like that. Like the feeling was like encapsulated by just kind of like moseying along, like not going anywhere, if you know what I mean. Just
Yeah,
like
coasting.
just yeah, like just being and not like it was a very like it's like, oh, well, I'm just doing this for no particular reason.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting
Yeah.
that it happens at the beginning of the dream, as you say, leaving your neighborhood, leaving your home to begin this dream journey. Is this sense of coasting along in a direction, kind of almost being carried that way, not against your will, but not entirely under your own power, so to speak. I don't know if that,
Yeah.
but then that takes you
Yeah.
past the neighborhood and you see people just doing their regular things and you see annoying kids and you just kind of want out of there. You're like, this is not very interesting. This is not where I want to be. Did you have that sense of it?
Um,
Like you wanted to leave, you wanted to go on that journey. So it took you straight to
not
the path in the
really.
woods.
I was um at that point I was mostly just thinking like I was aware of my surroundings, but I was mostly just kind of thinking my own thoughts and just being. I was just like I was there. I was kind of like, just looking at the people, thinking about what I was gonna do when I got home, thinking about what I did before I left home, just thinking, like,
Occupied by your own
just,
thoughts. Okay.
yeah, just,
That may be interesting too, is, while you're kind of on, say, autopilot, coasting and
yeah,
thinking your own thoughts, you end up in the path through the woods. And I think that's a significant metaphor, image type of thing too. Um, do you have some specific thoughts about that place and what it means to you?
um, well, it is a trail I walk a lot in my dreams. And when
Mm-hmm.
I say a lot, like I really like I mean like several times a week for over a year. I have no idea why these dreams are recurring so hard,
Sure.
but I walk it a lot. And the funny thing is because it just kind of goes where it goes. It almost doesn't even seem like a path. It kind of just seems like a place in its own right. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Especially when the mushrooms grow there, because I was thinking to myself, I was like, I'm gonna go to the path and pick the mushrooms, and that's what I kind of wanted to do.
That
So
was,
maybe it was less about leaving, and it was more like, or maybe I was just like at the path, and I was like, ooh, I bet you there's mushrooms there. Yeah, that feels
okay.
more right. More
Sure.
like that.
So you're in the path and you're thinking you might find something desirable there. You might find something you would like to find on that path or along that path.
Very specifically mushrooms. There's also like a dude that passed me on that path at some point, but it wasn't really important.
In this dream?
Yeah. And it's like I'm actually usually afraid of dudes passing me on that path. I'm usually just like waiting for some dude to pass me on that path. But that's just pretty normal for me walking on any sort of path. So I just figured that was like kind of a cool deal, you know?
Sure. Well, you said you're normally afraid, but this time this person didn't feel threatening, just passed you.
Yeah, like I was looking out for him, but I wasn't like there was nothing particularly weird about him. They used
Yeah.
some dark clothing, just walking along. He might have said hi to me.
You kept an ey on him, but you didn't get this sense of dread like he meant you harm. He was just passing through.
Yeah.
I think there's something to that as well. There's something very, so I wanted to get your thoughts first. There's great metaphors for, walking a path or the path to a goal or discoveries along a path. And I think there's something to that. There is like this, for the first journey in the dream was getting out of your neighborhood, your family home, your comfort zone, or the starting place for you, going to the path through the woods, or this path with trees, and the idea that the trees are kind of arching over the top, so it's shaded. It's an enclosed path. It's almost like a natural tunnel in a way that's taking you through to a destination.
At first, the path kind of just seemed like a really scary place. Like it seemed like somewhere
in previous
where I
dreams.
wasn't really gonna find out where it came. Yeah, like when I first started, but now like I'm like, oh, it's the path.
Yeah.
And sure. I was like, there's probably much. So I was like, in this particular dream, I was feeling pretty comfortable about the path. I was like, this is my path.
By this point, you've walked the path so many times that it's become a comfortable place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's something there. I'm getting a tickle of significance about this imagery.
It's probably just me being like, well, my life sucks because I'm too comfortable to change it. And that's probably what it's all about. Fetching my money.
I think walking this path is related to the idea of searching. It's like your brain is putting this image in there to say you have to go somewhere to find what you're looking for. You're not going to find it in your home, in your comfort zone, maybe in your familiar surroundings. You're going to have to go through a path in the woods and look outside what's beyond the path to get what you're looking for. Yeah, so something like that. I don't know if that makes sense to you or feels right.
Yeah, I don't know if I got to the end of the path of the stream, but yeah, I do. It does go. It is there. No, it's the funniest thing. It's probably the thing I travel the most in my dreams.
Yeah, your brain's latched onto that imagery as something very important to journeying, to change, maybe to change is the word that comes to my mind. It's like because you change location by going from the beginning of a path to the end of a path, and it's a metaphor for the journey, so to speak, or the process of moving forward. So there's something there. I don't know. Maybe I don't want to put my words in your head, but I think it feels right to me.
Also, I prefer walking on paths than streets. So maybe that has something to do with it, because when I get to the path, I'm like, oh, I'm going to walk down this now. But every time I walk on a street, I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
I had to get somewhere.
And people who really love
walking downtown.
And people who really love driving would say their metaphor might be driving down a highway. That's the recurring theme for them. But for you, it's walking paths, because that's the imagery you prefer, the place that makes you feel good about walking that direction. Mm-hmm. Something like that.
I do drive in my dreams, but it's usually really unpleasant. And I drive in real life. Well, that's not always true. No, that is true.
Yeah.
Sometimes I drive drunk in my dreams, and that's not fun. I don't do that in real life. But it's not fun in my dreams, and I hit a lot of snowbanks and skid around a lot. But I always get where I'm going, and I very rarely have an accident, thankfully.
That's good. Well, if you're driving in snow, there's going to be slipping and sliding. Nothing you can do about that. I always recommend, if you're living in those kind of environments, get that four-wheel drive truck going. Yeah.
I usually am driving the truck in my dreams. The big, like a Chevy Silverado, because that's what I drive in real life.
Okay.
And I drive in my dreams.
Yeah, a lot of the imagery in our dreams is specific, which was also why, we come into the building. And I think it's interesting that it represents many kinds of buildings. So there's like an kind of an archetypal sense to it of, I don't know how you would describe it, of like these different places. You've got hospital, school. It's been many different types of places in your dream, but it's always some kind of institution, so to speak. Does that make sense? The school is an institution. Hospitals are an
The school
institution.
is really special though, because when I go to the school, I mean, I didn't graduate high school, so the school has some significance because it's always like a place. It's a place I didn't return to, and it's a place that like my brain's stuck on a lot.
Yeah.
But the fun thing about the school is that it kind of has this trope that goes along with it, and that's the field trip. That sometimes I go in my dreams, and that's a very unique thing because you don't really know where you're gonna go. And sometimes I take train, sometimes we go to different countries. One time, when I was going to school, I was being told that we were signing up for a prestigious space program, and I got into this room, and they basically gave this spiel, and they were like, so you guys are young cadets, like you're gonna go out and you're gonna do great things for humanity. And this is like when I realized that they were just sending us off onto this little rock, like just as kids, because we were expendable, and they were just gonna like go, and they're being like, we're sending these kids to space and it's gonna be great. And so we arrive on this little rock, and it's this old for some reason it's just this like really ancient settlement, not necessarily distinctly human, but there are like, it's just like run down. And this is like, this specific little planet is somewhere where I've gone to like maybe 2 or 3 times in my dreams. It's one of the most interesting like field trip things that has happened. It's not the same, but it does happen sometimes, and it's really scary, and the gravity is really low, but it's really cool.
Well, that's kind of fun when you can like jump and fly through the air. I love playing video games with low gravity effects. That's fun.
Whenever I go lucid, I do have a tendency to try to fly because that's what you want to do when you're lucid.
Hell yeah. If I could like plug in Matrix style and fly, I'd do it right now. Done.
Right?
Yeah.
There's a funny thing too, like it's not quite flying. There's something happens in like the physics in some of my dreams where it's like lower gravity where you go like ping, 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 like off the walls, and it's a thing.
Well, speaking of physics, that was once you entered the building, you came in through the employee entrance, and what you were doing was working in this. So if this building represents the institution or the idea of institutions, you came in as a part of the process, like rather than separate from the process. And what you were doing was cleaning rooms with other coworkers, and there was this weird gravity physics. That's what brought me back around to it. The idea of objects bouncing off the walls, things being chaotic.
Yeah, it's just because it makes it a pain in the ass to clean up. And I always think to myself, it's funny, because this is not like, it's not something that happens in real life, but I just like assume in my dreams because people party too hard in there. I was like, man, these people party way too hard in here. It makes it such an annoyance to clean up. But that's just like...
Yeah. So you're having the experience of other people's choices or behaviors interfering with your ability to get the job done. Does that resonate?
Yeah.
Does that link up with your personal life? Do you kind of feel like other people's problems are making your life complicated in a way?
Yeah, because I'm not super smart at telling people to shut up about their problems when it's like causing me a hard time. It's like I'm the kind of person that my brain automatically wants to distract from my entire life with other people's entire lives. So I'm really prone to that kind of codependence, and it's really not cool. So
that's a good thing to know. Yeah. That understanding is an extremely important place to start. So maybe this particular element of the dream is trying to remind you of that a little bit, saying, you've got your own work to do. And if, and actually what happened was you left, you said, I'm not dealing with this.
I did.
Yeah. No, I think that's very important. It's your brain saying, you maybe you need to set some boundaries in real life. What do you think?
I left to deal with my friend's problems. I left my work to go help my friend, which is also funny.
No, that is true. Yeah. So even in your attempt to solve one problem of other people's mess annoying you, you put that down, but then you're like, I'm going to focus on someone else. Oh no, maybe not the best choice, but it gave you a new mission. I mean, there's something satisfying and meaningful to being of use to other people.
Yeah.
And that's one of our greatest satisfactions in life in general is like, imagine you're out in the woods. What are you going to do? You're going to build something? Sure. And you look at it and you enjoy it. But what does it
you know,
mean?
it's,
You know, if you're not doing something in relation to other people, it doesn't feel as meaningful.
yeah, and it's hard. Like, I've got depression too, and not a lot of things actually stimulate my brain.
Hmm.
So it kind of like end up stuck into this situation where like that is just the thing that is most available to stimulate my brain. Like it's the you know it's a right, you know what I mean? And
Sure.
it's just like that habit and that pattern that, but also the availability of stimulation that makes it difficult to escape from. It's like
It can be. I mean, that's
ah
the first thing that came to mind is Twitter. The idea of people going back there for dopamine hits, and there's constant engagement. You just keep scrolling. There's a million people saying all
yeah.
kinds of things. A lot of people get trapped into that and can't put it down, or have like overwhelming urges to look for the next thing, and then they waste all their time. And they're like, "What did I do with my day? What happened?" Um, so there's something to that too. Not to get down on social media. It's got its purposes and whatnot, but it, most things are a matter of like balance, degree, moderation in all things, you know.
Yeah.
So that's where I was
Is
going
there
with that. Is that it's good to help people, and it's meaningful to help people, and it's satisfying, and it should be, and you got to do it in the right proportion to taking care of yourself.
When I dated this guy back in last year,
Hmm.
and his house was really messy. It was not smart to be dating this man. I'm young, like I'm 21,
Hmm.
and this person's 28 now. He's just like a man, like an alcoholic,
Oh,
and I thought things were going well. You know, I thought he liked me and stuff like that. And I was staying over, and I was like, you know, like we should. Do you want to help to clean this up tomorrow? Like, I'll bring the vacuum cleaner over. We'll clean it up. And I ended up cleaning his whole house, and then he stole my vacuum cleaner, and that still plagues me daily to this day.
Eh,
And I'm not good at setting boundaries.
well, no, and there was actually an element to the dream where you said you were in a department store, but there were also like construction supplies being sold there, and you were looking around for food, but also you wanted to buy a rug and a vacuum cleaner. Is that
Yeah, and
you
it's
think?
also because like I think about vacuum clean. This is a funny thing too because it's just like that's exposing because I think about vacuum cleaners because my friends broke their vacuum cleaner by vacuuming water, so I've been on the lookout for
Oh
them
shit.
on like the used websites for vacuum cleaners that people put up, but then it's not even for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that's another distraction to occupy your mind, to take your worries off your own troubles, and to get those the hits of satisfaction for doing something useful to someone else. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of funny when you put those two situations side by side like that, though.
Yeah.
Because it's like, Emmy, what are you doing?
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. This seems like a dream that's bringing a lot of these elements together of trying to help you kind of sort through what seemed to you right now to be the most important problems for you to address and resolve in some manner, or at least begin to walk the path through the forest to find an answer for how to figure these things out. Um, it's what was I going to say? There was another. It is interesting that so you infiltrate the institution now through the patient side of things. You're no longer a part of it. Now you're an outsider coming at the institution to fix something on the inside, because you
yeah,
couldn't do it as a part of it, but you could maybe do it as an outsider. And what you were going to do was be useful to someone else. So that's a driving force in your life.
this is true. Although it's 50-50 when I'm in the hospital, because sometimes I'm a patient, sometimes I'm a nurse, and sometimes I'm both. And it gets
Sure.
confusing.
Yes, and that very much changes, because you are in real life. I mean, we are all both. We are these dualities. We are the helper and the helped, and we identify with or take on
That's
more
true.
responsibilities in those roles based on situation. But you did your best to be useful, say in seeking to help a friend, and you couldn't find them. You couldn't accomplish that specific mission. And then once you realized that it wasn't working, your focus shifted to something personal that was lost. So it went from I'm going to help other people to wait a minute, I have my own problems. I'm going to focus on this now. And that search then took you home, where you were dealing with the hustle and bustle of a family situation. When you kind of string those together, what comes to mind?
That's true, because it kind of the like the flow of distraction makes sense when you put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could see how it would go like back around that way. But yeah, that's interesting. The funny thing is that a lot of my personal issues in the dream are just like petty problems, whereas everyone else's issues are like like
Yeah.
But I mean, I participate in all of them, so I guess it doesn't really matter too much.
Well, that's a good insight too. I mean, and there is kind of a progression too of like searching to satisfy your hunger, whatever it is, and it's represented by food in the dream, and walking a path to get there. It takes you to the strip mall, and you find something nourishing but not satisfying, so to speak. And so then you move on to trying to maybe find meaning or in a work scenario, and it's just annoying, and it's other people's problems making a mess, and you don't like your coworkers. Now you're moving on to searching for a friend to be of use to them, and then that transitions into searching for something personal to you as meaningful, and then that transitions into searching for a missing child, and that's much more important. It's like, wait a minute, priorities. All of that other stuff doesn't even mean anything. There's a missing kid, and it's also significant to me.
But I probably spent the least amount of time searching for the missing kid.
Well, there's a good chance that was.
I was pretty sure they were dead. I was like, I'm pretty sure they're gone now. So
yeah, no, I was going to get to that too. Is you had the sense of it's my fault that they're missing. I can't even tell people because they're going to be mad, and the consequences are so dire. They're gone. They're not coming back. They're probably dead. This is a mistake that cannot be undone. And that
not only that, I was like, I literally lost their child like last week, and I did it again. So now they don't even have 2 children anymore. They don't even have 1 kid. They have 0. They're both gone.
So the dream didn't reset. It picked up where it left off. Oh, second child gone. Yeah.
You're
probably really hard. You're probably really hard on yourself about your personal mistakes, especially when they hurt other people.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the biggest, and that's not surprising to me that was the shortest part of the dream, and you woke up right afterwards. Like that hits
probably too stressed.
That hits so close to home. You needed to get out of it. You woke yourself up. You're like, I can't do that.
The funny thing is, I can feel like the rise of anxiety in my dreams that will cause me to wake up. Okay. However, there have been times where a dream has been too scary that it made me lucid, and I've tried to wake up, and it usually works. But there was this one time that it didn't work, and I was lucid, and I was trying to wake up, and I couldn't wake up, and it terrified the shit out of me, because I was like, excuse me, this is not a dream. It felt like smacking your ass against the rubber wall and not going through, It was like,
yeah.
And I was like, but it might have been partially a natural conclusion, but my anxiety was definitely rising at that point of the dream. It was like, and usually when that happens, like that's a good catalyst to wake up, because I feel like you could, like, the heart palpitations, like I could feel like my heart racing and being like, it's not feeling too good about this. And it's just like all that excitement. It's just like, it's just too much excitement.
For sure. Yeah. Too intense. And that's a lot of what we do in real life when things are intensely uncomfortable. I mean, specifically the idea of pain. You put your hand in something hot and you pull it back because that hurts, and I don't want that pain to continue. So waking up from a stressful, painful experience in a dream is very, very reasonable. You would expect that to happen. Yeah. I mean, I think we got into a lot of detail. Oh no, I did want to spend a little bit of time on the idea that you're desiring to repair a fence, and that is real in real life. So there's a reference to that. But fences are boundaries, and you probably feel like your boundaries need some work. And so even in your dreams, you're like, can we fix that fence a little? Can we give it some attention? What do you think about that?
This is true. And it's also I don't know what I was doing. I think I was putting plastic up on it, but there's a lot of me thinking about plastic and thinking about putting that up on stuff. I've just been like making things lately, and I've been really thinking about that fence in particular because that house is in a very windy area and it causes the garden not to grow very well. So I've been like turning it over and over and over in my brain of like, how in the hell am I gonna block the wind from going in there? So I think it was like a little bit of that too.
Sure.
But it was also on the other side. So it was just like I think I was also just trying to get out of the way of everybody else. Just like
Yeah.
you know,
But
with my
that's also a
own.
powerful metaphor too. You have to put up a functional fence so that your garden can grow. In a sense, the
Yeah.
garden is you, or the fruits of your labor are need to be protected by those appropriate boundaries. So that's probably part of the imagery in your dream as well, and probably why it's on your mind in real life. Like if you didn't care about having something to show for your efforts, you wouldn't bother with the fence. I mean, there's a dozen projects I'm not doing outside because other things are more important to me right now, and that's representative of where my mind's at. Um, so I think that's something significant. But also that in the dream that the child was lost to the wilds, and that's a specific area.
Yeah.
I think that
The
yeah,
wilds are a dangerous place. Sometimes the weirdest thing, this always happens, we end up having like wars with like people nearby in the wilds. Like we have to like go marching out over the marsh and like it's just a thing. It's not there's wild animals out there. Like I don't know. I feel like a dog. I would like my thought in the dream was like, yeah, a dog probably like it really was. I was just like, I don't
sure,
like they could have really just fallen in a hole, sunk into some mud. I don't know. Like it
yeah.
just
That
yeah. I was
the
like
amount of danger in the wilds is almost limitless, huh?
yeah. I
I think
was like
I think that place describes something very important as well in your mind of this space outside of what is familiar, comfortable. It's wild. It's not controlled. It's not a contained area. It's and to me that feels
vague.
like challenging the unknown, the outside world, or the difficulty between negotiating what's inside of you and the dangers outside. I don't know if that's making sense. I think I'm onto something, but you probably have better words for it.
Yeah, and just like the I don't know, it's a complicated relationship with it, I suppose. But yeah, the wilds are kind of a funny thing because they're like I don't know. It's just a big, big space where a lot of things happen. But yeah, I'd say that's basically accurate.
Yeah, because yeah, it's
It's
just
great.
I love the metaphorical concept of the wilds because it's not just a place of unlimited potential danger. It's probably also a place maybe in your mind you've gone to retrieve important things or to challenge some situation and conquer it, succeed. Have you had those experiences?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of it is looking for stuff out there and just going, like
Yeah,
and uh, sometimes dying, sometimes drowning, sometimes getting stuck in a pond, like that kind of thing.
yeah.
But it's never forested. It's always like it's always a, it's always a barren. It's not like which is honestly true to life because up by the family home, it's a barren. But it's very like it's interesting because even in the places even like before that became like the norm and like kind of the what it would be like every time that I was in my dreams, like the place that I would be considering the wilds would have trees, but they'd kind of be like dead and it was mostly grass. So it would always be kind of like this tawny color going on. You know what I mean?
Okay. And when you
So it's
were
not
when you were younger, did you go out into those this area in real life and have adventures and challenge dangers?
not really.
Okay.
Not like that. No. When I experienced well, I wasn't allowed to explore that much
You
as a
were told it
child,
was dangerous
but
out there and you weren't allowed to go there?
yeah,
Gotcha.
and but I would have done most of that kind of thing in the woods probably
Oh,
as a
fair enough.
kid.
Well, that makes sense too. Like we were talking about Freud earlier, and there are some things from your childhood, like if you're told, beware of this thing, and it's a big deal, do not ever go there. It would make your parents very angry to put yourself at risk by challenging these dangers that they told you to stay away from. That becomes a very strong symbolic image of dangerous places in general. So it'll
Yeah,
come back to you to represent that Yeah.
That's probably true. I
Yeah.
was always like kind of afraid of sinking in a bog because that's like something that really happens.
That's legit.
Just like
It does. Kids disappear all the time. Yeah.
yeah,
Eaten
because
by a
it's like
dog, sink in a
they're just
bog. Yeah.
everywhere, and you can't tell. Like you can't tell what is and
Oh, it
isn't
seems like
water,
solid
and then
ground.
you can
Yeah,
lose your shoe.
for sure.
And it happens to me in my dreams too. But the funny thing is about the wilds is that there's often like little houses and lots of different things happen. Like there's not necessarily a common theme of it, but
Sure.
there's sometimes weird things. Just the weirdest things.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting idea too, that there's people who live in the wilds. How do they do that? And that's,
There's not that many people. These houses are often dedicated to other things, like having certain things in them,
okay.
or sometimes even being a little bit haunted, but not really haunted. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
sometimes houses in dreams do things that things in real life don't do, and it's hard to describe because it barely
sure.
even exists on a three-dimensional plane. But you just know it's just happening.
Yeah, yeah.
Creepy houses.
Well, what do you think about this particular dream and our walk through our the ideas we've put together about it? You think we're missing something? You think there's chunks to, there's pieces of the puzzle to put back together? Or do you think we got a pretty good overview and theme, fairly good understanding of it? What do you think?
Yeah, seems like the course has been run over pretty good. It's like, yeah,
Okay.
things. I think we covered most ground. I think in it.
Yeah, if anything
Not
stands
really.
out to you and you're like, what does this mean? This is bothering me. I'd love to hear it. I'm not trying to rush you out the door, but this is a good time because we've kind of come back to the end of the dream on our third pass through, and now's the time to say what are we missing? Anything? Maybe not, but maybe something stands out to you.
Hmm. Oh, one of the things where with the colored pencils is that I kind of didn't think that they were gone, but I didn't like the fact that they weren't all in the place I wanted them to be.
Yeah,
And that was the main issue.
for sure.
Because I wanted to be like, oh, well, I know where they are and they're there.
Yeah, and that goes back to, I think, the idea of searching for something missing. Again, searching missing objects, missing people, etc. And this is something extremely personal to you, and it's something it's kind of like having your shit together. It's like the reliability
I
of
get
something
anxious when my
important.
shit's not together.
Yeah,
That's the thing. When all of my objects are not in one place, I forget them, and I'm cognizant of that to the
yeah,
point that I have extreme anxiety when I have to carry multiple things out of the house or into the house or
yeah.
anywhere, and it's just like this whole thing.
It's like
But
they're
that's
going to
just me.
disappear. Yeah, and they may
I think it's an
disappear due to
OCD.
inattention. Yeah,
I've had I've had a diagnosis of that. It's not like the same that it used to be. So I used to have this like hypochondria thing going on where I would be genuinely convinced I was dying. Like I would be writing wills. I refused to eat salad for like a year because I thought I was gonna get food poisoning and die. It's like this
wow,
whole
yeah,
thing. But it's different now. But I think that's kind of like that's one of the bigger ways that it manifests is just like um being like fixated on like the groupings of things so things don't get lost, like things like
yeah,
that, like frantically trying to overcompensate
yeah.
for that level of disorganization with that obsessive side, you
That's
know.
exactly where I was going to go with that. I have a lot of routines in my life so what is OCD? It's basically behavioral anxiety management, broadly speaking. It's you have these
Yeah,
feelings and
exactly.
you're trying to reduce that anxiety through specific behaviors. And a lot of it, and again, this is that spectrum idea of there is a need in the human condition for anxiety. It serves a purpose. Anxiety, fear, pain, these things.
Because that was one of the first most important things I ever learned about anxiety.
What's that?
Because I was a very anxious kid, and the fact that anxiety was necessary, and I could tell myself like this is a normal human emotion that I'm
Yeah.
feeling, and it's attached to something. You know, like just to know that, just to know like, hey, this is not an alien takeover. Basically,
Yes.
this is you.
That is extremely important. Yeah, and the idea that because it is normal, it's not something we can do without. Like I like to use the example. Have you heard of there are some children born without the ability to experience pain? Have you heard about that?
I it's so interesting because it makes them not makes them not able to correctly assess danger, right? Like they basically go through their lives and
they're running around the backyard. They jump off something tall. They break their leg. They keep running. They don't even know it. And then they go show their mom, Mom, why is my foot lopsided? And she's like, oh my God, take them to the hospital. They get a cast. They have no idea. They're like la-di-da. And so if we lacked the ability to have anxiety or pain or fear, we would just die. It's that evolutionary thing bred into us for years to keep us alive, to focus our attention and get us out of danger. So what do you do with that?
Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, what do you do with that is it's all about proportion. You know what? Paranoia is fear out of proportion to realistic danger. And then realistic danger is often a matter of opinion sometimes. But the same goes with anxiety. It's like, how much anxiety is too much? How dangerous is the situation? How potential is the outcome that you're worried about? So yeah, it's a lot of what we do is an organization helps, that creating these routines and structures that we can rely on, that it goes over into OCD when it's more dysfunctional, when it's like these routines are not serving a useful purpose. But I have a little red apple, and in that little red apple every fucking day goes my keys, my wallet, anything important that I'm going to need again tomorrow. It goes in the red apple. And when my wallet and my keys are not in the red apple, it's a problem. I need to go find them. That's my routine, and my anxiety type of stuff is linked to that. But go ahead.
Oh, I was thinking about like the behavioral thing, and the nice thing about the funny thing about OCD specifically is that like it can be amended behaviorally. Mm-hmm. But the funniest thing is like it's like a water balloon that if you like squish it in one side, it like pops out the other. So you just kind of gotta like.
It sure can be, yeah. Oh, that made me just think water. You mentioned, okay, going back to the garage and the mine, this deep shaft, and at the bottom of it was a theater and a waterfall, and there was someone there that filled water in a bucket from the waterfall. And the first thing that popped into my head around that was the idea of digging deep beneath the surface to find, and what's a theater? It's a place where you're shown images or there's information presented, usually of an entertainment value, but there's this waterfall, and there's the idea of taking someone collecting something from the waterfall. And this seems to me like, when I express it that way, what comes to mind?
The theater is funny.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of just there as happenstance in the stream, because the thing with the theater is that it's in the basement, and it's kind of like next to the mines, if you know what I mean, like
okay.
Below. And sometimes they have shows there, but in the stream it was kind of just there because it's there, you know, like it was just there because it's a part of the mine. And sure. So
I think the important element was the waterfall and the collecting the bucket. Yeah.
Well, I was surprised we got down there and it's just as simple as filling a bucket, because usually there's some shit going on down there.
Yeah.
That needs to be resolved and like involves a bunch of navigation and issues that like it's hard because you go into these little tunnels in these little stairways and they all look the same, and that happens a lot in my dreams too. Yeah, I get lost in buildings a lot because they get all wonky. But that's like just a common thing that happens in my dreams. Like really, like, because then, you know, oh my god, my least favorite thing that happens, this happens a lot when I get lost in my dreams, but I'll be like walking up these stairs and then my feet fly up off the stairs and I'm like trying to keep going up the stairs, but I can only hold on to the railing because my feet keep flying off, and it's so annoying. And that just happens a lot, but that didn't happen in this dream. It's just funny thing. Yeah.
It is interesting that the two things you did find in the dream were food, kind of at the very beginning, and then this bucket with the water collected from the waterfall. And water, it doesn't always mean the same thing again, but the idea of going down into a mine, which is where you dig to extract things of value perhaps, or look beneath the surface to discover things, and you find a waterfall. And water in this sense is like there's just almost a never-ending supply of something useful in a way. And the idea that you would have someone with you who brought the necessary supplies to gather some of that useful thing, and that it seems so easy. It was
funny. I was just going with them.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Maybe that is representing some kind of a desire for not a guided tour exactly, but a guide or a partner or some facilitated process to get at something useful and be able to have them help you pull it out and take it back. I don't know if that's making sense.
Yeah, I could see how that would translate, definitely. Because it was definitely out of place in that regard.
Yeah, and the idea that you were not, you didn't have the typical experience of being lost, maybe because you had a guide, you had someone with you to kind of take you where the waterfall was and get what you needed from the experience.
It was probably the only time in the dream that was actually working together with anybody else.
Yeah. And not just nearby while other people were busy and trying to maybe look busy out of obligation, or partner with people who were bad partners in the sense of the working in the hospital. Yeah, I feel like I need to sneeze. Oh, I hate that feeling. It's not going to happen. It won't go away. Okay, I'm going to live. Well, I think we did a pretty fantastic job of pulling. You remember like an hour ago when I was like, I don't know what to make of any of this. I don't know what's going to happen. And I was horribly confused. And I'm like, we got something. That blows my mind. I love it. I love it every time.
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, if you feel satisfied with the process, we can just kind of wrap it up and then hang out for a minute afterwards. And I'll talk to you kind of a post interview debrief.
Sure.
Good deal. Yeah, it doesn't take long. Just a couple of minutes. I just don't like to hang up on people. It always feels weird. Thanks for coming. Click. Yeah. But I will say to everyone watching, hey, that's it. I think I hope you had fun, and I thank you for watching another episode of Dreamscapes. Please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and please also thank our friend Emmy for being here. And I will. Emmy, thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good deal. All right, I'll kill it here, and we'll talk afterwards. See you, everybody.